In 1989, Forbes listed Donald Trump's net worth at $1.7 billion. By spring 1990, it figured at about $500 million. At most, not a good trend line. The recession landed him in an ocean of red ink, and he needed a path back to profitability. Trump's casinos in Atlantic City were less than break even. Only two of his assets stood a prayer of making a net profit: the Grand Hyatt and the retail component at Trump Tower.
Donald Trump has run out of money. The flamboyant developer missed an interest payment on 3 of his junk bonds, and now there is open discussion over whether he will declare bankruptcy.
In the 80s, he had no issues convincing bankers to lend him money. But with a recession on the horizon, that changed. And Trump's attempt to sell or refinance pieces of his struggling empire failed.
The reason he ran into trouble is, I think there's a part of it which has to do with believing his own hype, which is to say that he lost sight of the fact that every day you have to get up and renew your work again. He's the CEO of this very large, far-flung organization. You can't just let it ride. You got to pay attention. But he lost his attention span. And he started to get into trouble with that. And of course, there was an economic downturn which affected a lot of people. He was in big danger of going under.
His closest advisors, including even his father, have warned him that the only way out of his financial mess is to file for bankruptcy protection. And my sources say the only thing stopping Trump from filing is his ego.
His big bet on Atlantic City was on the line.
In the worst case, the default could force New Jersey to cancel Trump's gaming license. That could mean the closing of his 4 casinos in Atlantic City.
In this moment of despair, he didn't fold. He looked to do something creative to get him out of the jam that he got himself into.
Trump owes $2 billion to 50 different banks in the metropolitan area. They gave him another $60 million on Monday, but they are now balking at giving him any more.
He had meetings of his creditors, and he had them all in the room, and he made a pitch to them. He said, look, I owe you all different amounts of money under different circumstances. You can sue me and try to get it back, but I can wrap you up in litigation for 4 or 5 years without really, spending a lot of time or money, and you'll have the crumbs, the remnants. I propose to use something different. Give me a line of credit. Continue to keep me afloat, and I will make you whole again over time. So think about that for a moment. He's leveraging his debt as a way to buy time. It's very creative.
As the adage goes, if you owe the bank $100,000, that's your problem. If you owe the bank $100 million, that's the bank's problem. Luckily for Trump, the banks agreed to his proposal.
Now you can say, what else is he going to do? And I'll tell you what else other people did. They went bankrupt. Trump didn't. He did not want to go bankrupt.
Donald Trump has secured urgently needed money from 7 banks to avoid bankruptcy. The bankers have agreed to a $65 million bailout plan. The agreement calls for Trump to go on a budget.
As part of the arrangement, Trump was forced to surrender his yacht, his airline, and reduce his ownership stake in a number of his properties. He also had to commit to living on only $450,000 a month.
He made a cold, calculated decision that Donald Trump alive was worth more to the banks than Donald Trump dead. And therefore, he was able to do some very hard-nosed negotiating, which kept him afloat and put him in a position where he could deal with his debts.
He had a harder time dealing with his treatment by the media.
Boy, do I get bad press. The worst press of anybody I've seen. I guess Richard Nixon maybe gets pretty bad press.
And though Donald saved his business empire, his marriage was over.
It was the marriage of the model and the money man, and now it's the divorce of the new decade.
In December 1990, Ivana was granted a divorce on the grounds of cruel and inhumane treatment.
Ivana said she wanted half of the Donald's empire, more than the $25 million she was reportedly supposed to get in a prenuptial agreement. Well, Ivana will end up getting $10 million in cash, the couple's lavish Connecticut mansion, and an apartment in the Trump Plaza on 3rd Avenue.
When they were getting divorced, Donald said, "Don't worry about me. I've got a prenuptial agreement." Ivana is not getting more than $25 million no matter what. And guess what? I don't have $25 million. So Ivana is going to end up with the short end of the stick because I don't have any cash. When it came to money, when it came to business, he was ruthless.
According to friends, Ivana was devastated by the failed marriage.
Ivana was horrified. I think she was completely caught off guard. She never got over Donald.
But Donald moved on, right into the arms of his awaiting mistress.
Marla Maples was in love with Donald Trump, gorgeous, loyal to Donald Trump. She was high style. I liked her a lot, and it seemed to me that they were an excellent couple.
Ivana couldn't stand Marla. She never even would mention her by name.
Soon after the divorce, Trump asked Marla to marry him.
In typical low-key fashion, announced on live television that he was engaged.
Donald, so you're an engaged man this morning?
I am indeed, and Marla's a very special girl.
He purchased an 8-carat emerald-cut diamond, very similar to this, the top quality, blue, white, and flawless.
Before the two were hitched, Marla got pregnant with Trump's 4th child, Tiffany.
Little Tiffany was named after the airspace Trump purchased over Tiffany's jewelers to build his 5th Avenue Trump Tower.
But there were ongoing stories of trouble in paradise. Apparently, even Trump's beautiful fiancée couldn't reel in the Donald's playboy behavior.
Not only does Donald Trump have money and Marla, but today he had a job most men would kill for.
The women are all auditioning to pose in the 40th anniversary issue of Playboy magazine. Donald is the guest photographer. Marla mind you doing this?
Oh, I don't think so at all.
Hours before Donald was finally set to marry his Georgia peach, Nikki Haskell claims he made one last call.
About an hour before the wedding to Marla, Donald called Ivana and said, "You know, I'm so sorry that this is happening. Just hang in there, I'll be back." Like, you know, Donald doesn't like anybody not to be in love with him at all times.
Donald and Marla went on to have the wedding of the year at the Plaza Hotel. In attendance were celebrities such as O.J. Simpson, Howard Stern, and Rosie O'Donnell.
It's just been a great evening. It's been a memorable evening. Even all of you folks, you make it memorable. I've never seen anything like this.
By the mid-90s, the economy was back on track, offering Trump new opportunities to relaunch himself. That included spoofing his own image in the 1990 Pizza Hut commercial with ex-wife Ivana.
Have the last slice.
Actually, you're only entitled to half.
While banks were still hesitant to loan him money to buy more real estate, the Trump name turned out to be a valuable asset in its own right.
He realized the Trump name as a branded name was worth a lot of money if it was played right. And he was the first person who really understood the idea of branding real estate.
Those 5 letters, T-R-U-M-P, always in gold, got affixed to a number of Manhattan buildings owned by other developers.
It's Trump, 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 Trump Tower, Trump Park. Everything is Trump.
Rather than incurring all the risk of developing and am I going to get permits, am I going to get financing, am I going to be able to sell the product, you're lending your name, you're lending your expertise, you're putting the product on your marketing platform and getting paid very well for it.
The brand quickly grew beyond real estate.
Trump water, Trump biscuits, Trump steaks, Trump, give me a break. But he understood the idea of branding. The branding comes along with a lot of cachet and a lot of money because the Trump brand means something.
In time, Trump was back in position to expand his real estate portfolio around another one of his passions, golf. He opened several exclusive golf resorts in the U.S. and around the globe, such as Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, Florida, Trump International Golf Links and Hotel in Ireland, and Trump Turnberry in Scotland. In perhaps his most fitting extension of the Trump brand, he acquired the Miss Universe pageant.
Donald Trump is now the master of the universe, or at least the Miss Universe pageant. The New York real estate mogul bought the pageant, as well as the Miss USA and Miss Teen USA contests.
It would prove to be an acquisition with far-reaching political consequences. That's because decades later, a false allegation about sexual escapades with prostitutes during a pageant in Moscow would spark a massive federal investigation that would stymie his presidency, and Trump would repeatedly deny. But let's get back to the 1990s.
What are you going to do for the next 50 years?
Just maybe a little bit of the same.
In '97, he had a new book on the bestsellers list, The Art of the Comeback. On the home front, however, the romance that launched 1,000 tabloid headlines was kaput. He and trophy wife Marla were done.
Yes, they did break up, but there wasn't anything not to have broken up. It was not a solid relationship. It was his Twinkie of the moment, his cupcake of the week.
Tell me what's really going on about the divorce, the separation, whatever.
We're here to open a great building. Have a good time tonight. Have a good time.
Their divorce dragged out another 2 years after Marla balked at her paltry settlement.
The soon-to-be ex, Mrs. Donald Trump, has sent her lawyers back to court today to fight the couple's 1993 prenuptial agreement. Maples originally agreed to $2.5 million. Now she wants more.
Under New York law, though, Maples is entitled to half of what Trump earned during their 4-year marriage, but Trump's lawyers say the prenup is set in stone.
It was at this point, Nikki Haskell claims, Donald reflected on the consequences of his bad boy behavior.
Donald had just gotten divorced from Marla, and he came over to me and he said, "Can you believe that I married this dumb Southern peach, that I let her destroy my business, my life, and my marriage?" He said, "What was I thinking?" So I think at that time, that moment, if Ivana wasn't dating someone else, I think they would have gone back together again.
Trump's second high-profile divorce, however, didn't slow his climb back to the top.
During the 80s, he trumped his debt collectors, climbing out of $900 million in debt to a comfortable $1.6 billion in the black today. With a billboard-sized ego and ambitions taller than some of his buildings, Trump is now rated by Forbes as the country's 145th richest person.
When I met Donald, he recently separated from Marla, and he was going out. Everybody was always very attracted to him, and wanted to meet him, to talk to him. It's a really a fun person to be around. We went to Italy together, we flew to Paris together with his plane, and many other places.
He was, in between wives, he was certainly known as a bit of a playboy, without any question whatsoever.
I remember one time Rona, Donald's assistant, called me to Trump Tower. So I got to the apartment. He was so excited. He showed me this great big book. It was all of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit models for next year, not this year. He got them 3 months ahead of time. And you know what, Donald, this is really impressive. It's fascinating. He had to show another guy, otherwise it didn't count. And then the fact that he was so hooked up, that he was so in demand and so powerful.
Trump was spotted with the hottest models, and in an interview with Howard Stern, he compared dodging STDs during his Playboy days to being a brave soldier in Vietnam. Turns out the self-described germaphobe took extreme and less than romantic measures.
Said he has in fact been known to ask women to take a blood test at his doctor's to make sure they don't have AIDS.
It was Paolo, who was friends with Trump's next love interest, Melania Knauss.
I used to own a model agency, and as a job of the owner of the model agency, I was traveling for Fashion Week, where I met Melania. And when I met her, she seems like a very, very stable young lady, model. And I told her, listen, you want to come to New York, And she said, I would be very interested to come to New York. And we started the process to do her visa, but she came to New York for work.
Paolo's client caught the attention of New York's Playboy.
It was Fashion Week, and we did a party. Donald was invited. I went to sit him down at my table, and I introduced him. This is Melania. Melania, this is Donald. I hosted a dinner at my house for the designer Roberto Cavalli, and Melania and Donald came together.
We met at the party last year, and that's how it was.
Melania was a hit within the Trump orbit.
I really like Melania. I think she's terrific. Very smart. Ivana was actually quite fond of Melania.
With his finances and reputation back in order, as the 2000 election approached, Trump was intrigued by the opportunity presented by the Reform Party.
Well, there are a lot of things I do if I were elected, but one thing I do definitely is stop other countries from ripping off the United States. I mean, we're like a whipping post.
The third party had been started by Ross Perot, who received a whopping 19% of the vote in 1992, and a still impressive 8% in '96. Could Trump build on that? He brought back his old buddy for help.
He was a registered Republican, as were both of his parents, but he changed his registration to the New York Independence Party, which is the affiliate of the Reform Party, which would have made him legally eligible for the Reform Party nomination. And we made exploratory trips.
The first stop of what could be a Donald Trump presidential campaign landed in Miami.
When you look at your alternatives, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, I looked at Mr. Bush last week, and I looked at Mr. Gore, and I look at other people. And let me ask you, did they make billions of dollars in a short period of time? I don't think so. Would they be able to? I don't think so.
Donald Trump grew up not only wanting to be president, but confident that he would be the best president. He wanted to create a whole new political movement that would defy both the Democrats and the Republicans and propel him to the Oval Office.
Trump ultimately shelved his presidential plans.
There was also a hard-nosed calculation that if he ran in 2000 as the Reform Party candidate, he probably just would have split the more conservative vote and guaranteed the election of Al Gore, which he did not want to do. So ultimately, and this is important, he did not run in 2000. Now, what's interesting is that after he had withdrawn formally, it was too late to get his name off the ballot for the Reform Party primaries in Michigan and California, and he easily won both of them, even though he had made it clear that he would not be a candidate.
It was around this time Donald's father, Fred, passed away at the age of 93. Donald would always credit much of his success to his father's example.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, God.
There's another one. Oh, my goodness, there's another one.
This seems to be on purpose.
Oh, my goodness. Now it's obvious, I think, that there's a second plane just crashed into the World Trade Center.
The 9/11 terror attacks put Trump back in the political conversation. New Yorkers wanted to know what a President Trump would do.
In the year 2000, Donald, you considered running for president. If you had done that and if you had been successful, what do you think you'd be doing right now?
Well, I'd be taking a very, very tough line. You know, most people feel they know at least approximately the group of people that did this and where they are, but boy, would you have to take a hard line on this. This just can't be tolerated. This was probably worse than Pearl Harbor.
While his political ambitions wavered, he continued building the Trump brand. In 2001, he completed the Trump World Tower, the world's tallest residential building at the time. But it was his next move that would be his most successful business decision.
My name's Donald Trump, and I'm the largest real estate developer in New York. I've mastered the art of the deal and have turned the name Trump into the highest quality brand. And as the master, I want to pass along my knowledge to somebody else. I'm looking for the apprentice.
Trump had reinvented himself so many times. Golf courses, water, steaks, Atlantic City, the casinos. But he wasn't mainstream into the consciousness of most Americans until NBC gave him a show called The Apprentice.
The show, launched in 2004, was an instant hit. Trump got to play up his reputation as a ruthless mogul as viewers tuned in by the tens of millions. Two teams of opposing contestants battled it out weekly in a business survival death match.
Teams were challenged to create their own bridal shop. The winning team is the team that earns the greatest profit.
And at the end of each show, a member of the losing team would hear Trump's trademark catchphrase, "You're fired."
You're fired.
He was asked about, why do The Apprentice? And he said, it's fun. I'm having fun. And so the idea of Trump as a guy who likes to have some fun is, I think, an element of Trump that you don't often hear.
Trump reportedly earned over $200 million from the show and made a further $250 million from related licensing deals. It was a financial lifeline that, it turns out, he desperately needed. The great Trump comeback stalled when his publicly traded gaming business, Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts, filed for bankruptcy after it had accumulated an unmanageable debt.
Is the Donald in trouble? His Trump casinos visiting bankruptcy court again. Some of the developer's biggest haters now have seized on the news. The famous Apprentice star should fire himself. Is that fair or right? We thought we'd talk to the top himself.
The business is run well. It's a beautiful business. We have great locations, great buildings, but we had a lot of debt, and now for the first time the company is going to have just a very reasonable amount of debt, and you'll see what happens.
It was around this time that he tied the knot with longtime girlfriend Melania Knauss at Mar-a-Lago. Soon after, the two welcomed their son, Barron Trump. During the couple's first year of marriage, allegations would later surface he had affairs with porn star Stormy Daniels, Playboy bunny Karen McDougal. Both affairs would come into play in the 2016 election, as well as his post-presidential legal woes. But Trump's personal relations did not seem to interfere with his work life. Former Trump executive George Soros witnessed firsthand the Donald's dogged work ethic.
Nobody worked harder than him. Call me anytime after 5 a.m. He was always one of the first guys in the office, one of the last people to leave. It kind of made it hard for somebody to complain about, oh, I'm working too hard, because he was working harder.
During George's time at the organization, he got an intimate look at how the CEO operates.
He studies, he learns. For example, if even a detail that some might find mundane, you want to pick the color of the rug in a ballroom. He would have 10 samples out on his desk. They would sit there for months. Every single person that came into his office, from all different disciplines, all different ages, what's the nicest one? Ultimately, he made his own decisions. Frequently, I was told, you're wrong, I disagree with you, or you don't know what you're talking about, whatever. But I never felt that it was difficult to take a contrary opinion.
Competing in one industry after another, George learned how Trump stays on top.
He is an avid reader. He reads everything. One of the things that he used to do on a long plane ride, he would bring a box of periodicals running the gamut. And it was part of his whole attitude on, how am I successful? I know what people want. Well, how do you know what people want? You observe, you read, you look around. I mean, don't just go through life. See what people, what makes them happy, what makes them sad. Be observant. He was really somebody that did that to an extreme.
According to George, most important to Trump was getting results and having fun.
He was really more focused on a deliverable. This is what I want you to do. So you either achieved that result or you failed. There was no middle ground. He used to say, literally, get it done, have fun. And that was something, I heard that over and over again. Have fun. Have fun.
While Donald was running the Trump Organization and starring on a hit show, he was introduced to someone who would be a monumental figure down the line.
My husband George and I were living at the Trump World Tower. I became a member of the condo board at Trump World Tower and was just amazed at how involved Donald Trump was in that particular building. The employees at the Trump World Tower represented dozens of countries from across this world. They loved Donald Trump. They loved working for him, and that really stuck with me. So Trump would call me from time to time and have me come in or call me on the phone. He'd read a quote, he'd see me on a television show, and he'd want to discuss politics. With
the 2012 election approaching, he again contemplated a run.
fast forward 2011, Donald Trump hires me to conduct a poll because he is considering running against President Obama in the 2012 re-election cycle. My poll showed that it would be difficult for Donald Trump to beat Barack Obama.
Trump would then endorse Romney, and he would almost immediately have seller's remorse. I remember him calling me after every debate with Obama and saying, what's wrong with this guy? And then we spoke on New Year's Day after that November's election, and he told me that he had applied for the trademark on Make America Great Again. And there was never a point from that point on that I thought that he would not run.
Until then, Trump would have fun with his run on broadcast television. In 2015, his old pal, Geraldo Rivera, joined the show.
I was opposite Kevin Jonas of the Jonas Brothers. And Donald ended up firing Kevin Jonas and keeping me. He told me how pissed off at him the NBC executives were because Kevin Jonas would have been much better for the show.
Geraldo lost in the finals, a decision he claims Donald did not want to make.
Donald came up to me after it was over, and Lisa won. And he said to me, "These women would have killed me if I picked you over her." And he was so sympathetic, and he was so consoling, and he was really sincere that he wanted me to be the winner.
Meantime, the 2016 presidential election was gearing up.
Donald Trump being launched into the mainstream consciousness allowed people to look backward on his life and say, wow, here's someone who's claimed bankruptcy, who's failed, who's reinvented himself, who is a job creator. And now he's talking about public policy issues that make me wonder if he should be president one day.
The average television viewer does not distinguish between reality TV and news. It's all television to them. So if you think about it, Trump is depicted under the best possible light. He's perfectly made up, he's perfectly coiffed, he is sitting in the high back chair, he's making decisions, he's acting decisively, and people look at that and say, wow, that guy could be president.
Trump had teased presidential runs in 1988, 2000, and again in 2012. But this time, he was ready. But was America ready for it?